Nikola Tesla, the wizard of electricity, the indomitable genius who illuminated the future. Tonight, I have another quiet story to share with you. First, please turn the volume down a little and adjust it to a comfortable level. And if you think you may want to return tomorrow night, you may wish to subscribe now, so this channel will be easy to find whenever you are ready to sleep again. When you get into bed, thoughts about what happened today or what you need to do tomorrow may begin to fill your mind. And sometimes you may start to feel anxious, thinking, I have to fall asleep soon. At times like that, you do not need to force yourself to sleep. The human brain is designed so that, by gently directing its attention toward a quiet voice or sound, it can let go of unnecessary thoughts and naturally shift into a relaxed state. So, you do not need to try to listen carefully to the entire story until the very end. Simply let my voice pass by you like quiet background music. And if your awareness begins to fade somewhere along the way and you quietly fall asleep, that is perfectly all right. Now, let us slowly begin tonight's story. Tonight's story is about a brilliant inventor who was active from the 19th century into the 20th century. His name was Nikola Tesla. Electricity is something we use every day without giving it much thought. When we switch on the lights in a room, charge a smartphone, or operate household appliances, much of the electricity that reaches us is transmitted through a system known as alternating current, or AC. The person who created the foundation of this modern electrical power system was Nikola Tesla. He was also called the Wizard of Electricity and is known as a great inventor who stood alongside the famous Thomas Edison. The name of a well-known modern electric vehicle manufacturer was also inspired by his name. However, behind those brilliant achievements was a turbulent life and a quiet loneliness. Nikola Tesla was born on July 10, 1856, in a small village called Smiljan, which was then part of the Austrian Empire and is now located in present-day Croatia. His family was Serbian, and his father, Milutin Tesla, served as a priest in the Eastern Orthodox Church. It is also said that one of his father's brothers was an intellectual who taught mathematics at a military school and wrote textbooks. Tesla's mother, Georgina Mandic, commonly known as Juka, had not received a formal school education, but she was extremely skilled with her hands. She is said to have possessed enough talent to make various household tools and mechanical devices by herself. She also had an astonishing memory and had memorized many old Serbian epic poems. Tesla later said that his own extraordinary memory and creative imagination were largely due to the traits and influence he inherited from his mother. As a young child, Tesla possessed an extraordinary ability known as eidetic memory, allowing him to remember something he had seen only once with photographic clarity. It is said that, even as a child, he already enjoyed coming up with unusual inventions, such as using the power of beetles to turn a small windmill. In 1861, Tesla entered elementary school in his hometown of Smiljan, where he studied German, arithmetic, religion, and other subjects. The following year, in 1862, his family moved to the nearby town of Gospic because of his father's work. There, Tesla completed elementary school and continued on to secondary school. In 1870, At the age of 14, Tesla enrolled in the Higher Real Gymnasium in Karlovac. All classes were taught in German, and it was there that he experienced an encounter that would determine the course of his life. It was an electrical experiment demonstrated by his physics teacher. Tesla was deeply captivated by the phenomenon of electricity, which produced crackling sparks and displayed a mysterious power. "I want to learn more about this wonderful force." It was the moment when a profound desire to explore electricity was born within him. Tesla possessed an exceptionally brilliant mind and could solve complex calculus problems entirely in his head without using a notebook. It is said that his calculations were so fast that his teachers suspected him of cheating. Making full use of his natural talent, he completed in just 3 years a program that would normally have taken 4 years. Although Tesla graduated from school with excellent grades, a major ordeal struck him immediately after he returned to his hometown in 1873. He contracted cholera, a severe infectious disease that was raging at the time. For 9 months, Tesla was unable to get out of bed. His life was in danger several times, and he became so weak that even his family had almost given up hope. Until then, his father had strongly wanted Tesla to follow in his footsteps and become a clergyman. In other words, a priest. However, when his father saw his son hovering between life and death, he made a firm promise in the depths of his despair. "If you recover from this illness, I will send you to the finest engineering school." For Tesla, who was confined to his sickbed, those words may have given him a powerful reason to keep living. It is also said that the early works of Mark Twain, which he read while bedridden, brought great comfort to his heart. After miraculously recovering from cholera, Tesla next hid in a mountainous region to avoid conscription into the army of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Dressed like a hunter, he wandered alone through the rich natural landscape and spent his time exploring. By immersing himself in untouched nature, his body and mind, which had been severely weakened by illness, gradually regained their strength. Having overcome his illness and recovered his physical strength, Tesla entered the Graz University of Technology in Austria in 1875, just as his father had promised. He attended with a scholarship from the military frontier and immersed himself in his studies with almost obsessive intensity. During his first year, he passed 9 examinations, nearly twice the required number, and the head of his department even sent a letter to his father, praising him with the words, "Your son is a star of the highest order." At the university, Tesla became deeply fascinated by the lectures on electricity given by Professor Jakob Poschl. However, at the Graz University of Technology, Tesla encountered a major challenge that would influence the rest of his life. At the time, electrical generators and motors operated using a system known as direct current, or DC. When direct current devices were operated, violent sparks flew from components known as brushes, causing a considerable loss of energy. As Tesla watched the experimental apparatus demonstrated by his professor, a question occurred to him. If we could create an alternating current motor that did not require the current to be deliberately converted into direct current, wouldn't it operate more efficiently and smoothly? However, Professor Poschl and other experts of the time dismissed Tesla's idea, declaring that such a thing was physically impossible. At the time, alternating current, in which the direction and voltage of the electrical current change periodically, was considered extremely difficult to control, and it was also believed to be difficult to make the necessary equipment compact. Even so, Tesla did not give up. If this weakness can be overcome, alternating current can become the dominant form of electric power. Trusting this intuition, he quietly began conducting repeated experiments and calculations within his mind. However, by his third year at the university, Tesla had become excessively absorbed in both his studies and gambling, making it difficult for him to continue his academic work. In the end, he left the university in Graz at the end of 1878 without receiving a degree. After leaving the university, he temporarily cut off contact with his family. Rumors even spread among his former classmates that he might have drowned in a nearby river. In reality, however, he was living in another town and earning a salary as a draftsman. In the spring of 1879, Tesla's father found him and brought him back to the family home. However, the following month, his father passed away at the age of 60. In the midst of his grief, Tesla received financial support from relatives and traveled to Charles Ferdinand University in Prague in 1880, where he continued his education by attending lectures. In 1881, Tesla traveled to Budapest, Hungary. He intended to work for a communications company, but when he arrived, the company was still under construction. Tesla therefore began working as a draftsman at the Central Telegraph Office. When the telephone exchange began operating soon afterward, his exceptional abilities were recognized, and he was appointed chief electrician. While working there, Tesla accomplished a number of outstanding achievements, including improvements to telephone repeaters and amplifiers. Then came February 1882. A decisive moment arrived that would change both Tesla's life and the history of humanity. One evening, Tesla was taking a quiet walk through a park in Budapest with a friend. As he gazed at the beautiful sunset and recited a favorite poem, an idea suddenly flashed through his mind like a bolt of lightning. By combining two or more alternating currents, it would be possible to create an invisible, rotating magnetic field and smoothly turn a motor. The principle of the induction motor, the principle of the rotating magnetic field, appeared in his mind in a complete and perfect form. Overcome with excitement, Tesla took out the walking stick he was carrying and began rapidly drawing the motor's design in the soil of the park. The theory of the alternating current motor, which he had been developing in his mind for many years, had finally been completed. Based on this discovery, Tesla designed a two-phase alternating current motor. His achievements attracted attention, and later in 1882, he was hired by the Continental Edison Company in Paris, France. At the company in Paris, Tesla worked on the installation of large-scale electric lighting systems and the improvement of electrical generators, rapidly acquiring practical knowledge and skills in electrical engineering. His exceptional talent soon caught the attention of senior management. Then, in 1884, filled with even greater dreams and hopes, Tesla crossed the Atlantic Ocean and traveled to New York in the United States. In his hand, He carried a letter of introduction written by his former supervisor and addressed to Thomas Edison. It is said that the letter contained the following words: "I know two great men in this world. One is you, Mr. Edison. The other is this young man." After arriving in New York in 1884, Tesla immediately began working at Edison Machine Works, which was operated by Thomas Edison. New York at the time was a lively city in which electric lighting was rapidly spreading, but its factories and workshops were also so busy and crowded that there was barely room to stand. Tesla was kept occupied with demanding work, including repairing generators, troubleshooting problems, and improving equipment designs. One night, when the generators aboard the SS Oregon, a large passenger ship that crossed the Atlantic, broke down, Tesla worked without sleep and repaired them perfectly in a single night. The following morning, when Edison encountered Tesla as he was leaving after completing the work, Edison is said to have remarked to a colleague, "That man is extraordinarily good." Edison, too, recognized Tesla's outstanding technical ability and dedication. However, their relationship did not last long. Their fundamental ways of thinking were simply too different. Edison was an experimentalist who achieved success through countless experiments and failures, working persistently and practically until he obtained results. He also had absolute confidence and a powerful business interest in the direct current electrical system that his company had already begun deploying around the world. Tesla, on the other hand, was a theorist who relied on precise calculations and theory, constructing a perfect model in his mind before turning it into a physical reality. Above all else, Tesla was convinced that the coming age would unquestionably be the age of alternating current. The two men could not agree. Furthermore, after Tesla completed a particular project, a serious disagreement arose between Tesla and Edison's company regarding the payment of his salary and bonus. Tesla felt that he had not been properly compensated for his work, and after only about 6 months, he left Edison's company. After leaving, Tesla briefly established his own company, but the business did not succeed. He was forced into an extremely difficult life, earning daily wages by digging ditches for road construction. However, someone who had been quietly watching Tesla's talent soon appeared and extended a helping hand. The person who recognized the enormous potential of Tesla's patents and alternating current technology was George Westinghouse, a businessman and inventor. Westinghouse purchased Tesla's patents related to alternating current motors and power systems under terms that were extremely generous for the time. He then brought Tesla into his company as a consultant, and together they began working to launch an electrical revolution based on alternating current. This marked the beginning of the famous historical conflict known as the War of the Currents. On one side was Edison's group, which sought to dominate the world's electrical power industry with its direct current system. On the other side were Westinghouse and Tesla, who sought to open a new era with a more efficient, alternating current system. The conflict between the two sides became extremely fierce. In an attempt to convince the public that alternating current was dangerously unsafe, Edison's side launched an aggressive negative campaign without regard for appearances. In front of newspaper reporters, They demonstrated the electrocution of animals using alternating current. They also worked behind the scenes to have alternating current adopted as the power source for the newly invented electric chair. They attempted to implant fear in people's minds by portraying alternating current as a terrifying form of electricity that could take human lives. Tesla responded calmly with scientific facts and dramatic demonstrations. He passed high-frequency alternating current through his own body and caused light to shine from it, publicly demonstrating that when properly handled, alternating current was both safe and extraordinarily useful. Because direct current lost increasing amounts of energy while being transmitted, it could deliver electricity only within a range of approximately 1 or 2 kilometers from a power station. As a result, countless power stations had to be built throughout a city. In contrast, the alternating current system advocated by Tesla could easily raise or lower voltage by using transformers. By raising the voltage before transmission, electricity could be carried over great distances with very little energy loss. The voltage could then be lowered to a safe level near the location where the electricity would be used. In terms of transmission efficiency and low cost, alternating current held an overwhelming advantage. Then, in 1893, a decisive event occurred. Westinghouse and Tesla won the competition to supply electricity to illuminate the grounds of the world's Columbian Exposition in Chicago, an event that attracted attention from around the world. At the exposition's opening ceremony, the moment the switch was pressed, hundreds of thousands of light bulbs decorating the vast grounds lit up all at once, brilliantly illuminating the night sky. The people who witnessed the beautiful, dreamlike sight were overwhelmed by the magnificence of alternating current electricity and erupted in cheers. Soon afterward, Tesla's alternating current system was also selected for the Niagara Falls hydroelectric power project, the world's first large-scale hydroelectric power station. The enormous amount of electricity generated by the rushing waters of Niagara Falls was successfully transmitted to the city of Buffalo, dozens of kilometers away. This victory brought the War of the Currents to an end, and alternating current became established as the global standard for electrical generation and transmission systems. After winning the War of the Currents and receiving considerable patent income, Tesla established an elegant laboratory of his own in New York and began pursuing one new area of research after another. During this period, he attracted worldwide attention as the true wizard of electricity. He invented the Tesla coil, a device capable of producing high-frequency, high-voltage electricity. From the enormous coils installed inside his laboratory, violent purple bolts of lightning flashed and crackled, creating a breathtaking spectacle. Tesla invited famous intellectuals and celebrities to his laboratory, where he astonished them with dramatic experimental demonstrations. The writer Mark Twain, whose books had comforted Tesla during his illness and who later became a close friend, was one of the laboratory's frequent visitors. A charming story remains about how Twain became especially fond of a massage platform developed by Tesla that used electromagnetic vibrations and enjoyed using it regularly. Tesla's thinking was always decades and sometimes as much as a century ahead of his time. He developed technologies that formed the foundation of neon lights and fluorescent lamps, and he independently conducted experiments involving the X-rays used in radiographic imaging. In 1898, he also developed the world's first radio-controlled boat and publicly demonstrated it at Madison Square Garden in New York. Using radio waves transmitted from a controller in his hands, he freely maneuvered a model boat floating in a small pool. The spectators were reportedly so astonished that some suspected a trained little monkey was hidden inside the boat, while others believed Tesla was using magic. Tesla also envisioned the concept of electromagnetic induction cooking, the wireless communication technologies that would become the foundation of radio broadcasting, a smooth, bladeless turbine, and even a vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, or VTOL, capable of rising into the air without using a runway. The seeds of the ideas behind the smartphones, Wi-Fi, remote-controlled devices, and household appliances we use today already existed clearly in Tesla's mind during this period. After succeeding with numerous inventions, Tesla devoted all of his passion during the latter half of his life to one enormous project. It was a vision known as the world system. The world system, imagined by Tesla, was a dreamlike system that would use the Earth itself as a gigantic conductor, allowing information and electrical power to be transmitted wirelessly to any location in the world without the use of electrical cables. Tesla intended not only to transmit and receive voices, news, and images, but also to supply energy free of charge through electromagnetic waves to every place on Earth. Tesla believed that if this system could be realized, people everywhere in the world would be able to use abundant electricity freely, no matter where they lived. One person who sympathized with this magnificent dream was J.P. Morgan, who was known as one of America's most powerful financiers. With an enormous amount of financial support from Morgan, Tesla began constructing a vast research facility called Wardenclyffe on Long Island, New York. The facility contained an enormous wooden antenna tower, approximately 60 meters tall, known as the Wardenclyffe Tower. A huge metal dome was installed at the top of the tower, giving it a majestic appearance, as though it had emerged from a city of the future. Tesla devoted himself to the tower's construction and experimentation both day and night. However, the times began moving in a direction very different from the one he had expected. In 1901, news spread around the world that the Italian inventor Guglielmo Marconi had successfully conducted a wireless communication experiment across the Atlantic Ocean, using equipment that was far simpler and less complex than Tesla's. After hearing this news, Tesla's financial backer, J.P. Morgan, began to question Tesla's enormously ambitious and uncertain plan to transmit electrical power wirelessly. Morgan also became increasingly doubtful that there could be any profit in a business that distributed electricity free of charge throughout the world. In the end, Morgan ended his additional financial support, and the other investors withdrew as well. With his funds completely exhausted, Tesla was forced to stop construction before it was completed. The unfinished Wardenclyffe Tower was eventually auctioned off to pay for construction materials and outstanding debts. Ultimately, it was dismantled and demolished. Tesla could do nothing but watch as the greatest and most ambitious dream he had ever imagined collapsed before his eyes. This failure left a deep wound in his heart. After the failure of Wardenclyffe, Tesla's public activity as a celebrated inventor gradually declined. However, neither his intellect nor his passion had faded. In his later years, Tesla lived in a succession of hotels throughout New York. Every year on his birthday, he held a press conference. Before the assembled journalists, he enthusiastically continued to speak about futuristic technologies that sounded like science fiction, including a camera that could turn thoughts into images, and an enormous energy beam known as a death ray. Because the era had not yet caught up with his ideas, people increasingly regarded him as an eccentric or a dreamer. Tesla had an extremely distinctive and individual personality. He was more than 180 centimeters tall, wore stylish suits, and carried himself like a handsome gentleman. At the same time, however, he was also known for being an extreme germaphobe. When eating, he reportedly could not relax until he had carefully wiped the dishes and spoons on the table using dozens of clean napkins. He also had many unusual habits, including a strong aversion to round objects and pearl jewelry, a dislike of touching hair, and an intense attachment to the number 3 and its multiples. Tesla never married throughout his entire life. He believed that having a wife or family would interfere with the concentration required of an inventor. He therefore devoted his entire life and all of his energy exclusively to science and invention. More than anything else, what comforted his lonely heart were the pigeons that gathered in New York's parks. Every day, Tesla went to the park and fed the wild pigeons. When he found an injured pigeon, he brought it back to his hotel and carefully nursed it. It is said that he felt a particularly deep affection for one female pigeon with white wings and a white beak. "I loved that pigeon as a man loves a woman," Tesla later recalled. In a world where fewer and fewer people seemed to understand him, the small pigeons to which he could offer unconditional love may have gently warmed his wounded heart. In 1843, on January 7th, 1943, while the flames of the Second World War were spreading across the world, Nikola Tesla quietly reached the end of his 86-year life, alone and unattended, in his room at the New Yorker Hotel in New York. A sign reading, "Do not disturb," remained hanging on the door to his room. After his death, it is said that agencies connected to the United States government entered his room and seized the enormous collection of research notebooks and documents he had left behind. They were reportedly afraid that the futuristic technologies he had envisioned might fall into the hands of an enemy nation. Immediately after Nikola Tesla's death, his extraordinary achievements temporarily disappeared into the shadows of history. For many years, the honor of being recognized as the inventor of radio was attributed to Marconi. However, as time passed, the astonishing scale of Tesla's accomplishments gradually came to be properly recognized once again around the world. In 1960, the name Tesla, represented by the symbol T, was officially adopted in the International System of Units as the unit of magnetic flux density. It was the moment when his name was permanently engraved into the world of physics. Then, beginning in the 1980s, a worldwide movement to re-examine and re-evaluate Tesla began to grow. People came to understand once again that many elements of modern digital society and advanced technology had begun in Tesla's mind. Not only the alternating current systems he had studied, but also radio communication, remote control, high-frequency technologies, and his concept of free energy. In 2013, the historic American magazine Time selected him as one of the 100 most significant figures in history. The world Tesla once dreamed of, a world connected through radio waves in which information could be exchanged instantaneously across the globe, is precisely the world of smartphones and the internet that we now hold in our hands. Tesla was simply a person who lived one or two steps into the future, at a time when the world was still far from being able to catch up with him. In Croatia, the country of his birth, and Serbia, the country of his ethnic roots, Tesla remains deeply loved as a national hero. His portrait appears on Serbian banknotes, and the international airport in Belgrade is named Nikola Tesla Airport. He was a solitary and socially awkward genius, yet he continued to believe in the future with absolute purity. The dreams he imagined while gazing at Niagara Falls, the ideals he pursued as violent sparks flashed through a darkened room. Even now, within the modern society in which we live, they continue to glow quietly as a warm and enduring light. That was the story of Nikola Tesla that I shared with you tonight. How did you find it? Even if there are days when no one understands your ideas and you feel alone, the beautiful ideas and passions that you believe in will never disappear. After traveling through many places and many lives, they will someday become a gentle light that illuminates someone living in the distant future. For tonight, you can stop thinking about tomorrow and about all the difficult things in your life. Allow your mind and body to slowly rest. Take a deep breath in and slowly breathe out, like quiet waves of electricity spreading through the darkness. Your breathing, too, is becoming calmer and deeper. May peaceful sleep gently wrap itself around you. And now, good night.